that goal of driving to a meeting is, if you're at the start of the journey, me driving you to a meeting is exactly the wrong thing to do. Then I'll probably piss you off, and then you won't even put me on your shortlist.
Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, the podcast where you will hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Well, have you heard of the double 82 factor? Well, you are just about to. And this is an episode where I definitely am hitting a passion point of mine. It's about B2B marketing. And we are going to hear from Andrew Haussegger from Green Hat, who is based in Australia. And Andrew and his team have done a report about B2B marketing buyers. And it is fascinating to hear what we are doing wrong in our B2B marketing, but also some things we are getting right. And Andrew and his team at Green Hat have done a really, really fascinating report on B2B marketing. Now, this report is based in the APAC region, but honestly, these insights are globally useful. I've sent this report to people based in San Francisco, in Dublin, all over the place. And you are going to hear all about it now. All the things that we think we know about B2B marketing, the way we're measuring it, but we're getting some of that really, really wrong. And Andrew's going to tell us all about that now. Before we start, I do have a favor to ask, and it will take you about 4 seconds. Wherever you're listening to this episode, if you can see those stars and you can give us a rating, it really, really does make a huge difference to engaging, growing, and reaching a new audience of marketers just like you that are really interested in the topics that we talk about. So if you can do that, I really, really appreciate it. So let's get into today's episode with Andrew Haussegger from Green Hat.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Andrew, thanks a million for joining me on That's What I Call Marketing. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. We're finally having this chat, Connor, so I'm looking forward to it.
I know. The last time we tried, you were heading back from an airport, or back from an airport to the office in the back of a car, and you're back from traveling again. Like you ever off a plane?
Yeah. It didn't quite work, but look, we got here, right? So going to be good.
It's going to be good. Listen, we've so much to talk about because you've got incredible research that you've released. But for people who may not be aware of Green Hat, can you give me a bit of the elevator pitch for Green Hat?
Yeah, well, I'll give you the elevator pitch. I won't beg on about it too much. But we're a pure play B2B consulting agency, and we're the largest we believe we're the largest by headcount in APAC. We've been around for 20 years. We've got a team coming up to about 50 people. We work under the mantra at the moment of rethinking B2B. There's a lot going on in the B2B world, and we'll talk about that in research. And in part of that, then that leads into the kind of things we do for our clients. As a consulting agency, we're doing some research, developing insights for their audiences for them, helping them with their strategy and their plans for their go-to-market around that. And then we have a range of end-to-end sort of activation services from digital into content and creative and et cetera, et cetera. So some of the people we work with, Nestle, Corn Ferry in the professional services space, Workday is a good example in the IT tech SaaS space, industrials, ABV, we've done some work with Siemens and so on. So there's the brands people will know. And then we've done work for regional, more local organisations as well. And then the final thing I'd just say is around, the point of view or the proposition, the key things that we're talking to our clients about around what we call precision marketing, and really that leans into account-based marketing. People on this podcast who are in the B2B world will know about account-based marketing, and the one-to-one-to-one-to-many account base is really important. That's a big opportunity, and it all sits on top of being, AI and data-driven. And, obviously, there's lots of reality around AI, and there's lots of hype around AI, and part of it is cutting through the must to work out what is possible. And as I said to you a bit earlier, I've been off at a conference in the US just recently, so I've seen some of the things that are a bit more real. So that's good to that's a good thing for us internally. We work through that for ourselves, and then work with our clients on how they can be adopting and using some AI capability as well.
Yeah, and for me, like, it's really interesting. I love B2B marketing. I think for many years it kind of was the poor child of marketing, that people were just like, yeah, if you're not doing the big TV ad for B2C, it's not really marketing. And it's, where I think people like the B2B Institute, yourselves, like
Yeah,
MI3, others have kind of helped
yeah.
bring it to the fore. And actually now you're starting to see it being like, this sounds weird, like a place marketers want to be. Do you know what I mean? Like, which is
Wow,
a
that's
strange thing to say.
yeah. That's interesting. Well, there's the old cliche of uh, boring to boring. And you're right. The actual B2B marketplace is significantly larger than
Yeah,
the consumer marketplace. It's hard to get stats on the actual B2C marketplace size. There are some numbers around the B2B. Um, you can get numbers when you start to look at the e-commerce side of these businesses, and e-commerce in B2B is growing rapidly, as obviously online purchasing for consumer, but the numbers are sitting around like, this is a marketplace that's 4 to 5 times larger than the B2C market.
yeah,
So whilst it doesn't have all the, the gloss, and, if I can call it the sexiness of
I know.
B2C,
Yeah,
um, it is an exciting place.
yeah. And look, so on you released research in just in August, so
Yeah,
really kind of fresh research,
yeah,
APAC specific. But when I was reading it, and I've actually sent it on to a load of people. When I was reading it, I was like, there's so much here that's just relevant to anyone in B2B marketing. So definitely, I'll put links in the show notes for people to download
good, thanks.
the research, because it is really well worth reading. Now, I was like, I wonder, do we need to give people a health warning? Like, are we going to upset people today with some of the outcomes of the research, or
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point. Well, why don't we can just talk about it and then just see, yeah,
how people feel? Yeah,
how people. So I think we know who we might be talking about there. But just on the research, yes, the report you had a look at is APAC, but this research has been done with the research team at Sixth Sense, who are a B2B platform for providers. The head of research is a guy called Kerry Cunningham, who's ex-Serious Decisions B2B consultancy, and we've teamed with Kerry and his team to build the APAC research, but they've also they built it for the US, they've done it in Europe, and now if you go to, I think it's sixthsense.com/research, you can get a global a view of this research that we're going to talk about today. The other point I make is the type of things that we measured are the same. The metrics are somewhat similar, but the overarching story is a similar story. It's not like the APAC is wildly different from US and wildly different from Europe.
Yeah. Like there was, because some nuanced differences, which we'll get to, which is kind of interesting as well.
Yes.
I found some of these quite interesting. But one of the things, was reading through the research that kind of came across was the balance of power has well and truly shifted, right, from B2B vendors to the B2B buyer.
Yeah.
Why has that balance of power shifted?
Yeah. So, it shifted because of buyers' care. And what I mean by that is over the last, this last decade and more, the buyers have had more access to the information and the content and the data that they need in order to make decisions. So you go back a long while, they, internally they would say, well, we need to go and buy a new enterprise resource management system for our organization, go and spend $1 million. Let's go and put out an EOI, expression of interest, or an RFI, and then we'll put an RFP. And I'll send out the EOI and the ROIs to 20 organizations, and then try and get down to 10 that they want to send the RFP to, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, you think about those organizations receiving that for a big deal. What do you think the salespeople are doing? They are all over. They're all over these poor buyers, if you like. So what shifted, of course, is the buyers now can go and do a lot of that research themselves. There's a lot of information online. There's peer groups to join to talk to. There's case studies, et cetera, et cetera. So the reason it has shifted is because of the data and also the technology that's available. So where we're getting to on this is that this research, and there were 733 organizations in the APAC research, which is a really nice B2B sample, by the way. but the buyers are running through 73% on average, 73% of the journey before they're reaching out to the sellers. So just think about that for a second. Nearly 3/4 of that journey from wherever it starts to it finishes, they actually don't want to engage the salespeople on the seller's side. In the
I
APAC,
found that fascinating. That
the research does peel the onions back a little bit more. And so in our region here in APAC, we talk about that buying process being about 13 months. So if you think about 73% of 13 months, they've gone 9 months internally. And the other key stat in all of this is there's a buying team of about 12.8 people. So on average, right? So, 10 to 12, something like that. Globally, I think more like 10 globally. So there's a committee, and the committee sit down and they're spending a whole bunch of time doing all their research, allocated different roles, and having committee meetings around making decisions around what they want to do. And in that process, they are defining the requirement. So they're got enough information available to them to actually define what they need. So there's kind of they're defining that spec, and they're also deciding on the list without having going out. They're coming up with a short list or a long short list or something like that. And all this is happening behind closed curtains. We talk about in the dark, and sometimes we talk about the dark funnel.
Yeah.
Often the sellers can't see it, and has quite significant ramifications for marketers as to how in the B2B world go to market.
Yeah, like it's that all those, I mean, stats like are fascinating when you think about it, right? As an organization, 12 to 13 people or whatever, spending 9 months figuring out what the business problem is, thinking about, okay, how are we going to solve this business problem? And as you say, it's completely in the dark. And you as a marketer or a salesperson, I actually think this report is really important for salespeople as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Is you've no way to be aware potentially that is actually happening, right? And so for me, I was like, this kind of speaks to the real importance of having a strong brand in that space. Right. And I'm not, again, not brand TV, none of that stuff, but it's a strong brand. You have to be top of mind because they're going to need to use shortcuts with this complex process and all these people. I mean, I think there was each group member has an average of 20 interactions with 5 different vendors.
Yeah.
Like, so there was something like, that over 1,000 interactions in total for the whole process. Like there's this massive amount of work going on.
Yeah.
But if you're not in some way top of mind in that category, you're going to get missed.
Yeah, that's right. And so in our view, the senior revenue leaders inside organizations need to have a rethink. And here I'm talking about marketing, sales, the CEO, the CFO need to have a rethink about how they are approaching, how they are approaching these, organizations. A lot of these organizations are operating in the dark, doing all this analysis and building out their requirements and the shortlist. To your point, your brand has to be known, and you need to have a reputation. And we know as marketers, the way we do that in B2B is not by sending out our brochures, or because obviously that's not going to work. But it's around how we can help these and add value without pitching our products. And so that's generally under the term of thought leadership. So they're sitting there with a business problem. So we need to talk to the business problem. This is all that top of funnel stuff without leading into our product. We need to be making intelligent insight, and through that process, that's how we can get our brand known, and also be seen to be adding value. The other thing I'll add into this right at this point is a concept we call content comparability. And what that means is, if we really think about this, if you've got 12 people sitting down looking at as part of the buying group, a portion of those people will have the job of trying to find the vendors who actually solve the business problem. who've got the solution for it, right? So, and there's another group of process hidden buyers I'll talk about that, but so, and what they need to do is they need to come up with, they've got to find, okay, we've got a business problem. We need to find a solution to that. We need to set some criteria. So if I'm going to be spending a bunch of money, I'm trying to evaluate, it's not a haphazard exercise, particularly if I've got a committee. So now I need to have some criteria. And I need criteria to compare, the vendor A to vendor C and so on. And I need to see some proofs. And I need to see, some more detail around how someone's posing to, solve a problem. So one is, they're actually, this buying group, and part of it is got this job about, I've got to compare this to. So you think about, if you're the vendor, if I can make it easier for you to compare, help you with the templates and help you with the, the templates of the type of criteria you should be considering, help you with the business case template, help you with these sort of things. So you hope then that the buying group will find that valuable, that'll rub off on your brand and give you also an avenue to push through other points of view that you have.
That's really interesting. That is, a very clever way of kind of getting in and,
Yeah, and there's a thing called a buying guide, so those sort of things like that you can see, buying guide. And you know how many B2B, B2B vendors do that type of content comparability? Very few. And we talk with a number of them. You sit down, what's your content strategy? And lean into some are very strong on thought leadership, or some are very strong at talking about their product. Sometimes they're not often good at both. But that we're just talking about in the middle, if you like, middle to most of both to, is a critical area. And I think, and the research, sort of calls this out. So we sort of look there and think, well, I've got to build my brand, I've got to build my reputation. I can do it through, if I thought leadership, insights, helping them with the job that they're going to do.
Yeah. The insights to me is a huge unlock, I think. And actually, I think there's lots of different ways to getting insights. Obviously, speaking to your customers, or potential customers. But often when we speak to customers, we speak to them about our product and we kind of trying to find out what is it they like about our product or need or whatever. And actually, I found the more interesting insights are when you speak to potential customers or buyers and you start to think about their world, like what their day is like, what their business challenges are like, and you don't even talk about your product. I think you start to then unlock different types of insights that can help you with potentially this buyer guide or other piece of content that are more valuable and less of an inside out perspective on marketing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly right. And I think you start to, you build an understanding of their industry and their business from, as you said, and then you talk to that, and then that can you can then lean into, it gives you a conduit to actually then talk about places where you help people solve those problems.
Yeah.
Start to think about middle of funnel and the typical case study. So it's not, I don't throw it at you straight away.
And how, with such a complex buying committee, like, are there ways of people identifying that buying party? Because one of the things actually I in the report was interesting was involvement from C-suite, legal and procurement led to shorter buying cycles and smaller buying groups. So I don't know, is there a way to kind of, for organizations, start identifying those groups?
Yeah. So this is a bit of a hot spot. So put it into two categories. This is our view. And the B2B Institute with Bain and Co did some interesting research. We were talking about it a bit earlier, of the composition of the buying group. So in simple terms, we say there's one group of the solution buyers, and another group are they call it the process buyers, which are also called the hidden buyers. And so the solution buyers, let's say in the 12, there might be 8 solution buyers. It can vary, but they're the people who know what the business problem is, and they're looking for vendors who can solve the problem. That they focus on solution, and that can get involved. That can be getting down into technicalities. The detail. How do we set? If it's industrial machinery, how's it going to work and integrate into our factory? If it's software, how's it going to integrate into, blah, blah, all of that sort of stuff. Process buyers don't really care much at all for solution outcome. Well, assume when and these are often that could be seen, but they're assuming that the solution buyers have done all their due diligence and have the list of long short list organisations that all tick the box in one way or another. Now they're sitting there saying, okay, it's fine, and I'm not going to. So I'm the CFO, or I'm the head of risk and compliance, or I'm the head of procurement, all that sort of stuff, right? So this is you mentioned brand earlier. This is where what we call reputation marketing comes into play. So they're not interested in how well you actually solve the solution. They're thinking reputation and risk, and they're thinking about their own butts, by the way. So we're going to bet the business for the next 5 years on a piece of software to run the whole business. And I'm part of the committee, and in fact, on the risk line there, whatever. We've got to make the right decision because people know I'm on the committee. We make the wrong decision. My neck is one. So reputation. So now you can imagine what's going on is they're saying, do I know this company?
Yeah.
Well, what has this company done before? They're not running around to the websites filling out forms to download white papers. But they will go and look at the website, but they'll be anonymous.
Right.
So you can, let's say they've turned up, the solution buyers have turned up with 6. The process buyers look at it and say, well, yeah, we know them, but we've done one of those. I've looked them up for a startup, I don't know, but I'll be in business in 5 years' time. We're not going to be out of business on you. But the point there is, now I've got some of those buyers who they're hidden. I'm the seller. I don't know. You haven't come to my website. I haven't seen you. You didn't fill out a form. Yeah. You probably didn't talk to my things. I don't know who you are. And what, you cut me out of the process and know all the solution guys who I've been hacking away at all London. And then you're online to me. So I better find out who they are. So that's the setup. To find out who they are, many organisations will have personas. If they're anything like a lot of companies that we've come across, they're somewhat outdated. They're based on what the internal salespeople think. They don't have the voice of the customer. This research is now saying, well, you better make sure you've got a good you've got that right, because the things you're going to do now downstream are going to be aligned to that.
And it's a really great way of starting to think about it. Solution buyers, process buyers, different need states almost, but that's the setup of the buying committee. And I think, and I heard when I spoke to in organization I worked with, I actually spoke with our own C-suite and asked them how they thought about buying, because it was a big organization, and so they were being asked to approve MarTech solutions and other solutions. And so I went to all of them and I said, when you're thinking about a solution that your team needs, whether it's a technology thing, how do you think about it? How do you approach it? And a lot of them were saying exactly what you're saying. Well, I have people who, on the team who I trust that know the right solutions, and, I'll sign it off. Others were saying things like, I would go and talk to peers. So if I'm a chief risk officer, I'll go to talk to other chief risk officers that I know that may help validate it. So it's a really interesting dynamic. You are listening to That's What I Call Marketing.
Are you facing the maze of global expansion? Diplomat introduces the diplomacy model, a cost-effective, innovative approach to navigating the complexities of your brand's presence in international markets. Visit diplomat.agency.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.
Yeah, 100% right. And so now you think about, well, you're the seller, and it's the risk and compliance and the financial and the, so human resources. So now what are you going to do? Right. So, because they're not, I can't, they're hard to market to, they're not going to read my emails. I can try social media. I might get a little bit of cut through. It brings in this concept of the phase 2 of branding. So think about this. So my phase 1 of branding is at the top of funnel, which is across, and I should, hopefully I've got some personalization around it, but I'm doing that at the top of funnel. Let's try to bring people into the funnel. Now I've got this group of 12 people going through the funnel. They hit the middle and they're sitting down, blah, blah. Now they're doing these things we're talking about. I need to make sure, if I knew when that was, if I knew roughly when that was, I can start to do reputation building with that audience.
Yeah.
Here, I most likely through advertising, targeted, and social media and so on. Not about, do you know that my product runs faster than theirs and it's cheaper? Not that. About my brand and who I am. So that when it comes to that the culling meeting, they well, actually, I have seen some things. I've seen that organisation, and I did go and read something. And just the other thing, I'll just diverge to ungate your content.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going
to don't block them out. So well, that's the point. So that's the second point of the reputation building with these hidden process buyers.
So can I talk about the ungating the content? Because that is a thing that I think a lot of people were like, no, we need to make sure we're capturing the details.
Yeah.
You're like, no, ungate it, let it out in the world.
Yeah.
If you love something, let it free. But if
we actually say free the content. Free the content.
Yeah, free the content. It's a campaign.
It's a movement.
But the argument against that obviously is going to be, okay, if we do that, how do we know? How do we know who's got it?
Yeah.
How can we start hitting them up?
Yeah. There's some good the good platforms and tech around today that will allow you to identify accounts that visit your website. You won't get 100%. But in our region in the US, with the right sort of tools, we can get to 2/3, 70% of the visitors that we can identify the account. Yeah. And we can identify what the account looks at, and we can identify where that account is located, or the visit's located. But because of all the privacy laws, we can't identify a person.
Yeah.
First point is, if I know it's that account, right? And so that's one. Two is, we're talking about buying a group here, right? So there's more than one person. If I then see that actually I'm getting some visitation, if you like, from people in different locations or coming from different IP addresses and so on, it might suggest to me there's more than one person. That's a very super sign, because what we're talking about here is first party data. This is the data that you own, right? And then if I start to see a bit more activity on first party data, so visitations from other places or multiple visits even from the one place, then I think this third party data. So that's now what the account's doing, not on my website, but the rest of the world. So there's interesting tools that have third party intent data. So let me pull that in as well and just see if this account is actually showing intent around these topics that I have to do with. That's a really interesting data point. So then I say, well, hold on, I'm seeing what we call an intent score. I'm seeing some strong intent from that account. Now, I don't know who yet. I will know who. If they're on my CRM, I'll know who, because my automation system will pick it up and say, well, that person's been here before and I know who that is. But in many cases, I don't know. So now we go back to this thing we talked about the personas. All right, so I'm seeing a lot of interest from this account with third party, first party data, maybe some second party data. Now I'm going to, so I need to go and find out who the people are in that organisation that would be relevant. And I want to now start targeting that account and those people. So now LinkedIn's a good example, but I can do it in other places as well. But obviously in LinkedIn, whilst I don't say a person, I say in that account, the person who works in HR and is a director, VP or a C-level, something like that. And I hope through that mechanism, I start to hit on. So yes, I don't know specifically, but I would much prefer that I get my good thought leadership content, as much of it out as possible, into the dark room that these people are operating in, than not get it there at all because they didn't want to fill out a form.
Yeah, the form filling is problematic. I've seen that where people are just, they're just like, no, I'm not going to bother, or you're getting really bad information, or, like it's
a form, we know what's going to happen next, right? So, well, then I'm going to get lines of email, and then they might find a phone number, and they'll get a phone call from, all that sort of stuff. So
it's like, no, I don't want that. Yeah.
That's right. So they kind of stay away. So if you just make it available, then that's a really good direction. And the other related topic to this is this concept of the MQL. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because you stand in a room, I've stood in a room and asked a group of people, there'll be 100, 200 people in a room and say, tell me how many people here, the market people, how many people here still have their primary metric inside their organization MQL? And there'll be a lot of hands go up, right? And MQL is usually tied to form somewhere. So that is, and so if I say, we start to join the breadcrumbs, follow the breadcrumbs here and say, well, I've got to get content out because I've got to get to the 73%. And I don't want to block it. Oh, no forms. That means my MQL counts are going to go down. That means I could get belted up by the sales executive, blah, 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 that I'm not doing my job. You can see what.
Oh my God. I've been there.
Yeah, right.
I've been there reporting on MQLs that were not going anywhere. And there was a big debate with senior leadership where, me and a few others were saying this is not a good metric because they're not qualified and they're not leads. So we can keep the M. They're marketing something, but they're not qualified and they're not leads. Well, and the answer was, but we've told someone more senior that we're going to report on this number. And you're like, no, we're wasting money. It was, and also within that group, I'll stop my rant in a sec, but within that group of people, there were some genuinely who did want to hear from us, and they were never contacted. I was just like,
that's it. I think
therapy.
Yeah, so I think this is very therapeutic between the two of us, isn't it? I don't care if no one at all listens to this podcast, but at least we'll feel better about it. We're talking about it. But if you think about have we as B2B marketers have things improved because we've been focused on MQLs? Are we getting better at our craft? Are we delivering more to the sales and the organization because we've got MQLs as core measure? If you sit and look at the conversion generally of MQLs to objects to one business, no, it's not like anything. We're getting worse. It's 1%. It hasn't. Maybe you got to 2 or 3, but not good numbers, right? So so this idea of rethinking about what we're doing. So then the obvious next question is, if I don't measure MQLs, what am I going to measure? You've got to measure something. It's not like it's a free ride. It just go and spend $1 million in marketing. Well, hopefully it works.
Hope for the best. Yeah.
Just trust us. We're in marketing. Of course it's going to work. So there clearly needs to be a discussion and narratives and understanding. Senior marketers and CMOs need to sit down with the CEO and the CRO and head of sales and so on. And we need to sit back and say, the B2B buyers have changed the way they buy. And they have been for a while. Now we've got some really interesting data that cuts into all of this. So we need to think about how we are going to engage and how are we going to get in early? Because if we don't get in early, our salespeople can't get us in early. So that's the first thing that has to happen. And then one of the outcomes of that is how we're going to measure this thing. So now we talk about things that marketers should measure. So we say, I need to measure engagement. What does that look like? Well, if I need website visits as engagement, that's good. So I want to see if I move forward, if I let through my content, I spend more, I invest more in thought leadership. So I'm pushing out my brand with that. I'm hoping to see more people come to my website to find out more. So I want to see that. 2 is engagement in social media. So it might be engagement there, but that doesn't come through my website. So don't forget about that. The next part is there are some tools out there, and Six Sense is probably one of the leaders in the space, that allow you to, using AI to start to predict what you think the buying stage of accounts are. So before I said, I can know who the account is. I can know. Yeah. But what I'm actually more interested in, to identify these, just a computer running through a whole bunch of algorithms and basically signal processing. Is it telling me that this account, it believes this account is further down the track than others. That's a really important measurement, right? So
Wow.
I put a fall up to get that. And then the final bit where it all lands is opportunity pipeline uplift. That's
Right.
beyond MQLs. Are we driving up opportunities? Are we seeing within ICP, by the way, my ideal customer partner? So ICP opportunity uplift, and if that's going in that right direction, and then it's really now sales. Now, how can I help you convert that from a opportunity uplift into a? So that's
Yeah.
a long answer to difficult.
No, but it's important. I think it really is important that people start really thinking and reframing how they're measuring. And it came out really strongly in the report as well.
Yeah.
We touched a bit, and we kind of were talking about it here as well, is the role of sales, right? And as you're reading the report, there's like traditional sales outreach efforts not as successful. You've got we've talked a bit about it, but the double 82 factor, 82% of buyers have defined the requirements, and they're kind of they're through the journey before sales are even talking to them. Like how are sales having to kind of change their approach? Because again, when you read this, and then like marketing has to play such a fundamentally important role. And I think a lot of organizations in the B2B space are oftentimes more sales led, right? There's more salespeople than marketing people, and sales are driving the agenda. But actually, when you read this report, you're going, marketing is playing such an important role, because if you're not, we talked about it, if you're not there, you're not in the mix early on, it's too late for sales. By the time anyone's talking to sales, it's too late.
Yeah. So the elephant in the room question is, and this is leading on what you just said at the outset, where I know where you're going with it, is, what is the role of sales, and what value is sales adding in this new world of the buying process? So the old school organizations, more classic organizations, where they lean very heavily on relationship, sales bring a greater relationships. Right? So, but in the prior times, you could get in early and you could build your relationship. What we're saying now is a lot of stuff's done already. You need 82% you're talking about is 82% of the time they've mostly they're spec, and the other 82% is that 82% of the time the first vendor they contact ends up being the ultimate winner. So that's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah.
And if you play that out as a consumer, you want to go and buy a new car, you're looking at different models and so on. You say, well, I want to go for some test drives. You got to test drive probably the car that you really actually want to buy first, right? Before you test drive something else. It's the same. It's kind of the same logic. So what is the role of sales here? One area is the SDR. So when we think about, we've got marketing at one side, sales the other, and in the middle you've got this very important group that often gets understated called the SDR, sales development reps, business development reps, or lead management reps, whatever you might call them. They're the people that work in the traditional world, take the MQL and go on. So that's a really important role in all of this. Now they're typically go on meetings. So they go home and, so they've seen one MQL come in and they cool. Now, the reality is the buying journey is 10 to 13 months. Someone's come in early till and then been harassed to hell. And after 8 weeks, they call it off. They call the hunt off because the SDR has been get through and it's ditched in the bin and it's lost.
Yeah.
And you got to think about the irony of all of this. And then somebody else come, another job from the same organisation. They hunt them down for 8 weeks, could get contact with no, wouldn't, they ghosted me, blah, blah, blah. Always they throw in the bin, lost. And what's happening in the background? The buying party is going and doing its work, right?
Yeah.
So what needs to happen there is we need to work more closely. We marketers need to work real closely with the SDRs. That goal of driving to a meeting is, if you're at the start of the journey, me driving you to a meeting is exactly the wrong thing to do. And I'll probably piss you off, and then you won't even put me on your shortlist. So coming back to, I talked about content comparability, but and thought leadership. What we need to work with the SDR team to say, let's think about how can we help these people go through their buying process. What can we, rather than push for a meeting, how can I help you go through? Now, in order to do that, the marketing team need to come in and with the air cover of the right thought leadership, the right content comparability, like those sort of things. And therefore, we talked about meditation, and those things can lean in, and it can be coming from SDR, and that's okay if I actually an email address or for whatever. But and then get just this whole, I think, this paradigm, this model, say, hey, look, these guys are going to take a year to make decisions on average. Let's be cognizant of that. So let's not put in after 8 weeks. Let's just continue to move. And then and then SDRs have to have the right measurement in place around that. The final thing I would say is that the senior executive organizations, they sit down. If you think about your revenue business, which is sales, marketing, SDRs, that's your revenue business. Given this is the paradigm I'm working in, what's the right balance of investment and resource?
Yeah.
And I would suggest you can go into companies where we've got 100 salespeople and 10 marketing people, and that 1 to 10 balance isn't the relevant balance anymore.
Fundamentally, completely agree with you. It's a rebalance, and it's an interesting dynamic that I think leaders are going to have to kind of get their heads around. Like if you're starting out setting up an organization today, and you were like, how would I establish it? You wouldn't establish it by the old rules of salespeople on the phone, doom, 70 calls a day. Like you wouldn't do that, unless it's a very transactional business, I guess.
Yeah, you would. No, you're right. It's actually clean sheet of paper for these startups, So, I think you want to read reports like this to actually say, let's start off with the right balance of my revenue team, bring my revenue team.
And it changes again. I think for marketing, it's very important to read this report because it helps you have at least start the conversations if you're in an organization that is traditionally set to be more sales led. Because again, said it, sales can drive the agenda, and it can be the wrong one as well. And everyone's under so much pressure that you're just you're running to stand still. And it's really risky. So
and you've got them. It comes back to the quarterly goals and so on. So yes, because they are under that sort of pressure. But salespeople, we need to have really good insight into the persona of the buying group and the process of their buying. They know it better than sales. They know it better than marketing because they're in it every day talking to people. So help us marketers out with that understanding. We talk about voice of business, voice of customer, the voice of business. So help us out that. Second, we're going to need, so this 73% of the time, they're not talking to us. They're just reading, consuming, watching videos. They might go to events and then the SDRs chase them down. They say, pay off, I don't want to talk to you. But so therefore, but the salespeople, the good salespeople understand business problems with the client. They're in the market. It's walking the street. Help us with that too. Maybe you could be writing some blogs. Maybe you could, help us with all the groundwork we need to do to get this right. So there's plenty of useful things that could be done. We just need to reassign, the working well.
And look, you've hit it there. I think is we have to stop thinking so much about the solution or the product that we need to sell. Look, we need to sell it, right? Yes, we do. Everyone gets that. But when we shift it and start thinking about the client's business problems and understanding the world that they're operating in, then we start adding value to them and their world, and then they're interested. That's when you start, because if you have a problem and you've got somebody who's willing to help, and that's your shift. And I saw that with the great salespeople I worked with were always the ones that were understanding the client's needs and problems and figuring out how I could help them in a way that ultimately would bring you business. But it was starting from a different perspective, and would bring them in for kind of deep dive sessions where brought experts in that could help them.
Yeah, exactly right. It's a challenging time. I mean, it's challenging time in B2B anyway, but for the sales people, look at like millennials now that are, and this is touched on in your report, moving into decision-making positions. So that I'm talking about like the digital natives. They're a group, they're a category less inclined to want to deal with salespeople. So we've got 73% on average for everybody. You go to millennial, I don't have the actual number, but it'll be more with millennials, and that'll only go in one direction. So if they can put us having to sit through sales presentations and blah, 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 they will. And so, what does that mean for sales as well? How how's they going to be addressed? So, so really interesting times.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it really is, And look, I've said it multiple times throughout this. I think this is a brilliant report.
Thank you.
And that's why when I'd been on to you before, and you said you were bringing it out, and I was really keen to chat to you about it. And I think it's, I said at the start, it's something not just for marketers, salespeople, even client success, customer success teams should read this, because it gives them an insight into the world we're operating in now, and helps you then have that revenue organization conversation. Like, read this, send it to everybody, then sit down and figure out what you need to do. And then if Green Hat can help, well, you know where to go.
That'll be good. But it's like I said a bit earlier, we hope it's thought leadership, it's research, it's got people thinking about things, and it's things that we deal with, on a day-to-day basis, and things we talk to our clients about. So yeah, sure. If people want to just talk further, we'd be very happy to talk.
Brilliant. Listen, Andrew, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat through this today. Brilliant piece of work.
Thank you very much, Connor. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Andrew, and don't forget, you can go to greenhat.com.au to download that report. I've sent this report to so many people in San Francisco, people in Dublin, people in London. I think it is really, really interesting. So even though it's an APAC report, and there are some nuances, definitely, the insights are incredible. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Andrew, and don't forget to go to greenhat.com.au to download your copy of the report. There are so many great insights there. I mean, understanding how the balance of power is changing, understanding the number of people in the buyer journey and the buying committee is fascinating. I think we all think we know this, but we really have to think about it. And even small factors like, where's the head office based? I thought that was absolutely fascinating to figure that out. How we are starting to measure, how we are measuring. I've always had a bit of an issue with this. So many rich insights from this report, so much to talk to with your sales organization as well, and your strat ops and your sales ops. All these parts of the organization really should be reading this. So thanks a million to Andrew. And listen, if you have enjoyed today's episode, I would love to ask you a little favor, and that favor will take you about 4 seconds. If you could rate or review this episode or the podcast, wherever you're listening or watching, it really, really does help us reach a new engaged community of marketers just like you. So thanks for doing that. If you have taken the chance to do that, really appreciate it. Back next Tuesday with another new episode of That's What I Call Marketing. So from me, your host, Connor Byrne, thank you so much for tuning in.
If you would like to reach an engaged community of marketing leaders, get in touch with That's What I Call Marketing to discuss sponsorship opportunities.